Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hi.
Good. Is the community center still flooded?
I think they got it figured out, but it's drying out. So I think this will be the only one we miss. I was a little worried about worst case scenario, but I think we're gonna um, avoid the big problem this time, which is good.
Great. We'll take it.
Thank you guys for being flexible this evening.
Where was the
It's
flooding
always-
and what was the cause?
The pipe is real old, the sewer pipe there, and I think what happened is that there was a blockage about 2 weeks ago, and I think they got part of it, but not all of it. So sewage was bubbling up through the floor drains on the lower level, and it was really gross. So my first and initial concern was that it's a clay pipe that collapsed, but it seems that the pipe is in good working order, so we don't need to worry about that. And this is my brain going to the worst possible situation, I guess, but they got it scoped today and they got it cleaned up, and now they're doing the flood mitigation because it got into the concession area. So I think all in all, it should be okay. But
Is
How
the gym
old,
closed then?
it, I think it's reopened this afternoon. Once they knew that they had the safe bathrooms upstairs.
I can confirm that I had a friend go in and use the gym this afternoon. So the grapevine says it's open. Well, while we're waiting for folks, this isn't on the agenda, but maybe we can loop it into the agenda for the next meeting. But the Intermouse, the Mountain West Solar and Storage conference was in Denver this week, and I made it down yesterday. And it sounds like there's some great funding opportunities coming through for rural, well, just rural energy projects in general, including the one we were talking about in February, one in March, and then Colorado Solar for All funds are going to be unlocked and going live by the fall. So yeah.
Maybe I think you should wait before you talk about that. Just make sure you guys have a quorum at least.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to put a plug in it.
Yeah. Good topic though. I think I'm not sure. Let me make a couple texts here.
How's it going, Rich?
Oh, good. I was at the rodeo today. It was a lot of fun.
The
At
rodeo's
the
in
National,
winter?
well, at the National Western Stock Show. Yeah,
Oh, my parents always used to go to that. They'd bring their
Yeah.
yak.
yeah. Well, today they had. I mean, we went to the pro rodeo, and then they also had a large horse and donkey show going on. So that was fun.
That's awesome.
They had these humongous Clydesdales and Percherons and Belgians. It was pretty amazing.
Wow. You have livestock?
No, but my wife is really into horses. So
Oh, that's sweet.
yeah, we don't have one, for which I'm very happy. But she would like to have one.
It's wonderful to
Yeah,
admire other people's horses.
yeah. All right, so I think we have 3 people here, which is not enough for a quorum.
Cass, did you hear from everybody?
Yeah.
Or?
I heard from everyone, and everybody said they could be there except for Patricia. She was in a car accident,
Oh dear.
unfortunately, so she's recovering from that. But yeah, everybody said that they can make it. So hoping they jump on in the next few minutes.
I think I need to correct myself. I think we have 2 board members present, so.
Oh, yeah, board members.
Yeah.
Yep, you are right.
Melody's here, so that's 3.
I know last time the Teams link wasn't working for some reason, but I thought I tested this one. So, okay, and there's
All right.
awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
rapid
everybody's
fire.
joining.
Great. Love it.
And hi, Liv. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. I think everybody on the board who said they would be here is here.
And I do believe we have a quorum.
Wonderful.
Melody, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks everyone for being here. We will call the meeting to order at 6:49 p.m. And I want to welcome Erica back to the board. Great to have her. And our first action item is actually we need to appoint a secretary to the board. So Erica, if you want to introduce yourself and give others the background that may not have it.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. So hello, everybody. My name is Erica Thorley. It's good to be back. I think it's been 2 years since I've worked with this board, 3 years since I've been on the board. I know you all have done a lot in that time. I'm just really grateful to be back in this space with you all. I first started in 2017 on this board, and lots have changed since then. And just a little bit about my background. I do work in the sustainability space. I've worked in business space, sustainability, greenhouse gas reporting and inventories, renewable energy credits. And then I also work for local municipality in Boulder County. So happy to connect where helpful, and just excited to be with you all and just kind of get up to speed on what you're working on now and how I can support and get involved. Thanks, Melody.
Yeah, thank you. So we do have the resignation of Maddie from the Nederland board. So I don't know, Erica, how you feel about not being an alternate and taking that seat instead, and what that process would look like, or if you feel like it's not worthwhile and we'll just post the seat as it is.
I'm happy for whatever is best for the board and easiest. So I know the alternate position isn't through June. So if it makes sense, I don't know what Maddie's term was through, Melody. But if it's easier to take the longer term, just so we have more, we don't have to go through this in just a few months. I'd leave that up to you and the board.
This is Rich. Maddie's term is through June of 2027. And having been on the board when Erica was working with us, I would strongly support Erica being a full member of the board, taking Maddie's spot, but I think probably the town board needs to approve that.
You have my vote, Erica.
Yeah, so I think, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, we would probably take a vote here if that's what we want to recommend, and then I can submit an aim to the BOT for Erica to take Maddie's position, and then have the alternate position that ends in June this year stay open.
That is a great path. I think you should do that.
Wonderful.
I make a motion to do that.
Seconded.
And I'll call a vote. Jack.
Aye.
Rich.
Aye.
Rab.
Yes.
Ty.
Yes.
And myself is a yes. So we will do that, and we look forward to having you as a full staff member, not just an alternate, and we'll get the alternate posted once that's approved by the BOT. And so we also need to appoint a secretary to the board since Maddie held that position. Does anybody nominate themselves or another person to be secretary?
I dodged the bullet last time. I can step up. So I'll self-nominate.
Any discussion on that?
To the extent it's necessary, I second a motion to have Jack be our secretary.
I will move that we appoint Jack as secretary, and we got a second from Rich.
Correct.
Okay. And I'll call a vote. Rab.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Ty.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
Probably should vote. Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
I'll abstain. That's fine.
And I'm a yes, so unanimously approved.
Great.
So if you are prepared, we'll need you to take notes for this evening. And then you can always use the recording to supplement that as you need. If you want to use an AI tool or whatever you choose, that's okay too.
Melody, can I bring up a point of order? I don't think
Yes.
I've ever done that before, but since we have a resignation from the board and we have the alternate here, meaning Erica, she hasn't been made a full member yet, but she's still an alternate. I think that it's appropriate that she act as a voting member of the board for purposes of this meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
That may not be 100% kosher.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying. I think it's a good idea. I just think, I guess, are you guys taking, I'm sorry, I should know more about your agenda tonight. And I have. There's no specific action items though. It's just discussion.
The thing is, Jonathan, we really can't do much of anything. We're just an advisory board anyway. And all of our deliberations are simply sort of for our own sort of structural purposes and what we're going to advise at some point the Board of Trustees to do. So, and I mean, I could understand if we were sort of like voting to spend money, and I don't think we have anything like that. And the whole purpose of the alternate is to step in when a voting member of the board is not present. Otherwise, there's no reason to even have alternate.
The position needs to be ratified by the board. I am sorry. I understand 100% what you're saying, but that's.
But I'm saying, Jonathan, is she has been ratified as an alternate, and that when
Not by the Board of Trustees.
Oh, I thought I read in the Mountaineer that she had been. So if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
about
on
that,
Wait, am I
a
mistaken?
couple weeks ago.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. I apologize. I got confused. Thank you.
Okay.
You guys are good. I apologize.
Okay.
I think the clarification is needed of when does the alternate position get to vote? Is it every time they're at a meeting and at least one other SAB member is not present? Or is it when we don't have quorum and that we need the alternate to make the quorum? Because I thought that's how I understood it.
Yeah, and I
So
believe
I
that
have
it's
the
a,
I have the
sorry.
bylaws pulled up if we want to go off of those, because that's the official
Yeah.
rules. So with the bylaws, it says that one alternate will be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the Board of Trustees, which Erica was. And then, however, will only vote on action items if SAB does not have quorum or all 7 members are not present. In this case, not all 7 members are present, so I would say she can vote.
I would agree. She can
Uh,
participate in conversations too in normal things. I think that's okay too. It's just,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Cassidy, does the alternate contribute to counts of quorum?
I believe yes, as if we like say don't have quorum, but then have an alternate and that creates quorum, then we have quorum.
And
Yeah.
does the alternate contribute to both the numerator and the denominator of that calc?
I think so.
Well,
No.
Well, no, wait.
Just the
No.
what
numerator.
will happen is they'll be there, and then there could be situations like if you left in the middle of the meeting, she could fill that role. But
Okay.
the quorum is just counted by voting members, and then she would just step in that case that you didn't have quorum.
Okay, awesome.
But
Thank
she
you.
can participate in conversations. There's sometimes questions about that in other kinds of matters. But as Rich identified, you guys are not talking about you're kind of advisory. So I think that in large part, she should be able to participate in conversations like a regular board member. It's just when you make a vote.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So with that, we do have a guest here, and so we are gonna move the Boulder County Vision Zero Action Plan up to now, and we're gonna spend about 10 minutes on it, and then we can also have more time at the February meeting if needed to finish that. So Liv, if you want to introduce yourself and take it away.
Oh, thanks, Melody. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Liv Lewin, and I'm with Boulder County, the Vision Zero Program Manager. I just wanted to start by asking, how many of you have heard of Vision Zero? Maybe give a thumbs up or some sort of, reaction. Okay, I see a sideways thumb.
I have not. This is
Okay.
Trustee Ty.
Good to know. And I saw Melody raise a hand. So yeah, Vision Zero is all about transportation safety. And it really is a vision of 0 traffic deaths. And so what I'm going to speak with you tonight about is a reflection of the county's commitment to eliminate traffic crashes that result in fatalities and serious injuries. So Vision Zero Action Plan is going to be a detailed plan, a prioritized to-do list of actions that the county and partners plan to take to meet this vision. And so it's actually 3 plans going on at once. The first one is covering unincorporated Boulder County, as well as the mountain towns of Nederland, Jamestown, and Ward. And Lyons is actually going to be doing their own. So that's all going to be in one plan. And then Lafayette and Superior are doing their own plans as well. So wanted to just give you a brief introduction to the plan today and let you know about some upcoming ways to participate. So the plan that we're developing is going to have a safety focus that will complement your multimodal transportation plan, which I know Britt will be talking about either tonight or at subsequent meetings as well. So just kind of to give you a little flavor, many of the actions that will come out of this plan will be engineering focused. That's what we have the most direct control over. So they could be things like signal timing changes, rumble strips, guardrails, bike facilities, and more. But just to give you a little flavor of the types of treatments that we may see coming out of the plan. And then kind of on the non-engineering side, we're going to be looking at enforcement and education and other non-infrastructure approaches to really support a safety culture. So as you can imagine, one of the main tasks really is to do, it's a very technical analysis, really look at the crash data to understand the trends that we're seeing, the types of crashes and where they're occurring, particularly those most severe crashes, the fatalities and the serious injuries. We're complementing that very technical analysis with community input. So last summer, the team came to the Ned Farmers Market and we had an online survey to understand community concerns. Several folks like Cass and other staff from the town are on our steering committee, and that's meeting throughout the project as well. So tonight, I wanted to highlight the outreach we're going to be doing in February to get input from the community on priorities, you know, as we prioritize specific projects coming out of the plan. So that's like one of the main focuses of this outreach. And the other is to start bringing out some of those potential engineering treatments and, you know, take the temperature on those. So we're going to have an online survey like we did before in both English and Spanish. And so when this is published, I'll be happy to share this with you. And then, you know, if you all have networks, other groups, etc., social, if you can help us get the word out, as well as take the survey yourself, that would be great. We will also be at Winter Bike to Work Day in Boulder on February 14th. So if you happen to find yourself down there, we're going to be at the Boulder Chambers Station, which is like one of the most happening stations, by the way. If you go to one station, go to that one. It's at Pearl and Folsom. And we're hopefully going to be a part of the Nederland Town Talk that Peter's arranging for some time in February. So that's in the works and hoping that that will work out for us to be in person as well. So again, I'll be happy to share more information. I'm going to put my name and email and the website in the chat for you all. And if you know of other groups that might be interested in this, that you know, I could come visit or at least share information with, I'm totally open. We really want to get the word out and hear from as many people as possible. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to share tonight. And if we have a few more minutes, I'm happy to take questions if there's anything that has come up for you right now. Erica, yes. Oh, and it looks like the chat is turned off, so I might need to get that to you a different way.
Thanks, Liv. I just had a question about the unincorporated Boulder areas and pavement versus dirt, and if there's any differences as far as like resources or engagement with those discrepancies, since so much of our streets are dirt in Nederland and the unincorporated zip code.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the analysis that we did is looking for the high concentrations, or like the high injury areas. And so if those are occurring, whether those are segments or intersections, right? If those are occurring on roadways that are dirt, then we would be looking to address those. My guess is that we're not seeing quite as many on those. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking back to the analysis that's been done so far, which is really highlighting things like Boulder Canyon. And there's some areas of, I think, maybe 72. I'm thinking about some of the highways leading into it and out of Nederland. So yeah, I can't say that dirt has come up as a pavement type, you know, in terms of the crashes that we're seeing, but is there something specific that you've seen or that you wish were different or?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks on this call can contribute to this, but I live on Magnolia Road, and some of our feeder streets and then our main street, there's a lot of accidents and there's a lot of like usual suspects. And so it doesn't always lead to like injury and death, but definitely, you know, the chaos of snowstorms and just slick roads and things like that. So yeah, just curious if we could give that feedback.
Yeah, I would love to hear more. And I'm just curious, are you finding that a lot of crashes are happening when like the road is muddy or snowy in particular? Is that kind of what you're experiencing?
Yeah, the snow for sure. And then when they lay down magnesium chloride, I believe that's what it is.
Yeah,
the streets get
magnesium chloride.
Yeah, it just becomes a mess, and it's
Yeah.
worse than snow because it's not as predictable, in my opinion. And so, yeah, we have just like a handful of corners, especially, you know, between portions of Magnolia are not in the Netherlands zip code, so that would be a different conversation. But off the Peak to Peak Highway there, like West and East Magnolia, and I'm sure our Ridge Road folks could say the same. There's just a lot of dirt roads in that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, I know.
oh,
Sorry,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Liv, please continue. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I'm taking some notes about this, and you know, the point you're making about mag chloride is really interesting too. So I'd like to learn more about kind of what the practices are and who's maintaining where and things like that. So yeah, thanks for that note.
This is Trustee
Yeah, and they've
Jonathan. What's the group that's working with us to help us kind of redesign our streets? What are they called again?
That's the multimodal transportation plan.
Yes,
A
thank
lot
you.
of this stuff is addressed. I think it'd be good to send you guys the plan and probably discuss it more next meeting.
Right.
But it's very in depth. There's a lot of numbers on like casualties and things like that happen with traffic accidents. So a lot of information that I think would answer some of these questions.
Okay, and I was just curious, Liv, do you work with them at all? Is that like, I feel like that you guys is kind of both what you do kind of correspond with each other, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you work with them at all.
So I certainly know some of the people on the team who developed your MTP. We weren't directly involved in the process, but I have been referencing it and really, you know, as Brittany was alluding to, it feels like it's going to be complemented quite well. You know, the Vision Zero action plan that we're doing, of you know, as I mentioned, is pretty much county-wide. And so while, you know, we certainly looked at the crashes that are happening within Nederland, when we kind of look at where we need to focus, that spread out quite a bit around the county in terms of the higher density crashes that we're seeing. And so the MTP has some very specific projects within the town of Nederland, and they have a whole section on safety, as Brittany was saying about the, you know, the crashes that have occurred there and some proposed safety improvements. And the Vision Zero action plan will probably be proposing things that are more outside of the town on the highways that are leading into and out of.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Liv.
Yeah, thanks. Great questions. Anything else?
Liv, if I can really quickly, I just wanted to add, like, it's really easy to add suggestions, but in general, I think Boulder County and Nederland Public Works do a phenomenal job with their streets now. So I just wanted to add that in there. Like, there's always room for improvement, but you all crush it as far as clearing snow and road maintenance and updates and grading. And you just do a phenomenal job from my perspective.
Thanks. I will pass that along. Appreciate that. We don't always hear the nice input. So thank you for that.
I can tell you, as a former police officer in this town, the most crashes I saw, the two spots I went to as soon as it started snowing was up on Ridge Road, where it takes the bend and starts heading downhill. And then on 119, as it comes in to Nederland, right before the Eldora Road turnoff, that bend, that kind of switchback, that is the two places I would immediately go for accidents. I mean, I didn't even get calls, and I would just go up there and look and find an accident.
Wow. So particularly slippery, it sounds like, in snowy conditions on those curves.
In the both of them have, up on Big Springs. I said Ridge, that's wrong. I meant Big Springs. There's a real steep side on Big Springs, and then off of 119, there's quite a deep ditch that people I've slid into it myself even. So
yeah. No, thanks for letting me know about those.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else? Really appreciate your time and all you're doing to serve the community too. So Cass has my contact information. I'll make sure she has the project website as well, because it doesn't look like I can share it via Teams right now. But we'll make sure that you get access to that as well. So
Thank you so much, Liv.
yeah, thanks for having me. Have a wonderful evening, rest of your meeting.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Liv.
All right. And Britt, was there anything on the multimodal plan that you wanted to present to us tonight?
So I realized the presentation, the last one they gave was the board of kind of like changes they made for the board of trustees. So I was going to share my screen real quick and just, there's a lot of information. So I'd say like next meeting, if you guys have a lot of questions or want to email me, feel free. But I just kind of wanted to outline, let me actually share my screen with you. And sorry if there's sound, in my volunteer life. I'm in Fire Academy right now for Evergreen, so that's where I'm at. Let's see here. All righty. So I am gonna pull up. Can you guys see that right now or no?
Yep.
PDF?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I have lots of PDFs up, so sorry. So the main thing I really wanted to address is in the MTP plan, you'll see a lot of these like project summaries. The really cool thing about the MTP plan is they break it down from like pedestrian crossings to the roundabouts to turns, like the turn going to Eldora, creating like a right-hand turn. But they prioritize based on public feedback that we did in outreach. And they also prioritized it based on kind of like what makes the most sense or where funding could start happening. So I would recommend, I wish I would have created one for this, but I just didn't double check that. I would really recommend just like going through this and letting me know if you have questions. There's like a lot of data in here to kind of address. I can show you at least some pictures. So like a lot of their recommendations. One is some of our like short term by Boulder Canyon. Let's see, there was another one that I wanted to really address. Oh, so you can see right here on Highway 119, we have a lot of these like straight and creating these now turns. So we're not getting backed up traffic. And also we've seen accidents here. And so again, sorry, this is really short, but recommend you really kind of running through this plan and reaching out to me, or if you want me to come back with maybe more specifics next meeting, I'm more than happy to do that. That's really it. Sorry. It's a lot of information. So
what kind of input would be helpful from the board or from this advisory board on that? Like,
Yeah, so I would say if you want to take a look at it, I believe I'm not positive off the top of my head. I thought in the Fear and Pierce group came before you guys, but they might not have. But if you want to look at some of those priorities, and maybe if there's like a sustainability aspect coming from it that you guys have, or maybe if there's a priority that you're like, hey, this doesn't seem like the highest one we should have on here. Or this seems like one that potentially we could get grant funding. A lot of these you'll notice they're big projects. And so a lot of it is going to have to be funded by grants. So I would just say just like running through those priorities or letting me know if there's some in there that you didn't really see that you kind of just want to bring to staff's attention. Because this plan really sets us the foundation to now go after grants in order to get these because they've been named. So I would just say if you have priorities as yourself that you're seeing on here as like a resident or even outside of Nederland, I consider residents as well. Just, yeah, let me know. It's something staff is kind of like now keeping their eye on and can start moving forward with, especially once the comprehensive plan is done.
yeah, okay. Melody, would this be something worth setting up a subcommittee to review and get some consolidated comments back, or what's the best way to facilitate that?
I'm not sure. It kind of depends on what I guess the staff and the BOT want from us. I know that we did have them present. I couldn't tell you what month it was, but I do remember getting a presentation on it. And we as a board did spend some time giving feedback, asking questions. So I don't know if we need to do anything more than that.
Okay.
But I'm open to whatever.
Yeah, it is adopted, so technically you don't have to do anything. I would just say if you want to, I'm more than happy to like kind of start looking at this and maybe we think about like 2026 budget. What are some priorities based on the pedestrian, some of the infrastructure projects they have? Maybe we're prioritizing what should we start really looking for first. That might be good to hear from some of the boards, I think. And I'm happy I'll run through the presentations like Melody was saying and get you one that's a little more condensed as well. So you can have that and the plan because the plan's pretty big, but it's well put together.
Okay. So to consolidate that, Melody, we've had a chance to review, provide feedback in the process of developing the plan. Brittany, it sounds like feedback around implementing it, where there are ideas for things that could be prioritized within it, or like grant opportunities would be helpful to help things get going and set up good planning for 2025, 26.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because now that we've done our budget for 25, we kind of have our set in stone. But I think it'd be cool, if you guys see grants or you're like, hey, like we see these things coming. I think my goal would be, hey, here is some grant funding we're seeing could happen in 2026. Bring it to SAB. What do you guys think? Like, does this seem like a good priority, a good way to keep moving forward, just to keep this board involved and have a say as we're going through the boards? I think that would be my goal here, if that makes sense to you all.
Yeah, I think anytime that we're looking to do something major, construct something major, or change something major, we'd always love to give feedback. And if it's a large scale enough project, it probably would be worthwhile to do a scorecard on it. Because we did that for the TIPS project. And so I think things along that scale where we're looking at, okay, we're going to rework downtown, right, and do this walking mall. If we're going to pursue that, yeah, SAB absolutely, I think, can have some valid input there of how to just make sure the project is as sustainable as it can be. I think the plan as it is, though, I'm most curious about just like what the changes have been in the last 3 months to that final version. You know, where did we land on various things that were still kind of up in the air, I think, last time we got the presentation. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you, I actually have probably like 2 PowerPoints that cover from what you've seen to like what happened at the end. I'll send that out to the group, and then just feel free to reach out to me with any specific questions. We are still working on with them. They did get some like last minute feedback on the trails system. So they created a trails map. And you know, kind of in there, there is recommendation on how to connect them. So we can still also talk with those individuals. But yeah, I will send those out to your group. So it's broken down. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on that topic? Okay. Thanks, Britt. Then we will go back to the top of the agenda. We need to approve the December meeting minutes. So I'll look for anybody who feels like they have any edits they wanted to make to it, or a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve the December meeting.
Rich, was that you? I'm sorry.
No, it was Ty.
That was Ty.
Ty. Thank you, Ty.
And I'll second that. So we'll call a vote. Rich,
Yes.
Rab,
Yes.
Ty,
Yep.
Jack,
Aye.
Erica.
I'll
Abstain.
refrain. I wasn't there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, thanks.
And myself is a yes. So those meetings are approved. And the next thing would be energy improvements grant update.
Yep. So I realized that not everyone here might have context for this. So I'm just gonna explain a little bit about it, but essentially there is a grant through the Office of Clean Energy demonstration, and it is called Energy Improvements in Rural or Remote Areas. And so that grant kind of started this idea of creating a microgrid at the wastewater treatment plant. There had already been plans to put solar at the wastewater treatment plant, so we want to combine that idea into this microgrid concept if it makes sense. It's something we're still talking to Excel about. We can get technical assistance from NRail to see if it's even a good idea. And Wild Bear has expressed interest in working on a microgrid as well. So we have a few options depending on what makes sense. And the grant itself it provides an award of $2 to $10 million. The cost share for a local government would be 5% of that. And we could apply for the LOMA funds, the local match with the state, with I think it's just the DOLA provides that option, and I did check and they still have funds for that. So yeah, I'm also open to if anyone has questions about kind of the basics of that. But I'll wait if anyone has questions about the basics, and then I'll go into the update.
Yeah, so I know I haven't been most active member lately, but I did review the December notes and I saw this item. Um, so I previously worked for NREL and have designed and worked on microgrids myself, so I can maybe help facilitate here. I'd be interested in engaging and learning more about the project, and that might inform whether or not a solar project or or a microgrid or something in between is the best use case. And I guess a little bit more context aside from that, if we're reaching out to any EPCs or um, to get initial bids at some point in order to put together a funding proposal, it's good to keep in mind that the investment tax credit, which was rolled into the IRA, is paused for the next 90 days and has an uncertain future. So for budgeting for that $10 million price mark, might make sense to keep that in mind, that there may or may not be that 30%, 27%, whatever it ends up being, tax credit available for a group that installs, owns, or maintains that microgrid.
That's great information to have, especially as things change quickly. I guess the other, thing to note along those lines is this is through, or this is a clean energy grant, and there has been talk about, all things related to renewable and clean energy funding going away. So we, might do this work and the grant might not actually exist by the time we're supposed to apply. However, I believe there might be other options. I know Jack mentioned that he went to, was it a conference recently?
Yeah, the this is pertinent perhaps, but yeah, so I was at the Mountain West Solar and Storage conference yesterday. It was the last 3 days, and pretty much all everybody was talking about is the uncertainty around the new administration with regards to federal incentives. General consensus, so this is not tax advice, is that while they are pausing a lot of tax credits, those tend to be extremely difficult to pull out, but it would, it would require congressional action. And then a lot of the other good news was a lot of the grant programs and other funding has been allocated to contractors and other entities. So like there is still like 85% of the funding, that was the number that was getting thrown around, is still out there, in the pipeline to get deployed. So it's not completely grim. I think it's worth exploring, but Rab, definitely worth keeping in mind that there's certainly a timing pause, and then that uncertainty on after the end of the pause is pretty real. And it is awkward timing for this particular grant funding because it's due in February, so we don't get to wait and see.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Jack, that it makes sense to go ahead with the proposal, regardless of whether or not there is uncertainty in the funding. It seems like a great opportunity, but yeah, it'd be interesting to engage with you maybe outside of this forum on what you see as the prognosis for the industry. I know you said that congressional action would be needed to ultimately repeal IRA, but it seems that the cards are stacked in that favor. So yeah, we maybe move that to a personal conversation rather than the SAB conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Erica, you're.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so Well, I'll add something. So the IRA funds, there is speculation that there's so much going to conservative states that full repeal will not be favored by a lot of our Republican representatives. So that's positive. Who knows what's going to happen? And then I also wanted to ask, so I really appreciate this microgrid conversation. C2ES did an incubator on resilience in the Front Range. They just wrapped up a toolkit for resilience hubs development. And I haven't actually explored it. I just got it in my inbox today, but they're doing a presentation on it early February. So I can forward that to Cass. I can forward that to you or the board if people are interested. And then my question with that in mind is, have we looked at the Erie Community Center? So not just a microgrid, but really exploring this idea of a resilience hub, and not just like a gray sky weather shelter, but also a blue sky hub as well, which is a cool term, where it's something that like the community can use all the time. I don't know, just wanted to see if we thought about that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Erica. I don't think we have thought about that. We've mostly thought about it in terms of backup power and just that, you know, that aspect of resilience, but not necessarily what more can be done with it. And I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, I think I have a bit of a blind spot with regards to blue sky. That's the first time I've heard that term. I think thinking about microgrids in terms of resilience hub would be like the hope in targeting it, right? Is like not for its own purposes, but to serve the community. If we're targeting these fundings, I mean, cleaner energy, more solar, all great, but you'd like to see those resilience benefits.
I know at one point we talked about the community center being somewhat of a resilience hub, especially with its microgrid attached. And I think there still needs to be something done to connect it to the Excel grid. I'm not sure if that ended up happening. But I would be interested in just attending more informational sessions, meeting with someone to like learn more about resilience hubs. But if this is something the board wants to look into more, I guess, yeah, let me know if you have direct like information, like Erica, you mentioned the webinar. And I guess this is where I'm not sure if like exploring the idea of a resilience hub, is that something that SAB wants to take on? Or is it something that I guess staff should work on?
I think that right now what we're trying to talk about is the grant, right? And the grant application and how we're moving forward with that. And so I guess a poll from SAB members, yay or nay, if you want to incorporate that aspect into microgrid, or if we need more information on that. But I would personally say yes. Let's explore that more and see how that beefs up that proposal, and how it adds to it, because I think it does. And then the other thing is we're definitely discussing microgrid, but I'm not sure that we've come up with a location. And so that's almost the first question before we explore, could it be a hub? Because we don't know where it's going to be. You know, if it's at the wastewater treatment facility and it's part of that side of town, That's not necessarily a publicly accessible place, maybe not the best place to explore that, but at the community center, if we're looking at expanding that microgrid in that side of town, then yes, it would make sense.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, those location and function are tightly related, right? Like
Yeah.
looking at a, you know, the most impactful reason to install or invest in a microgrid, even if it's grant funded, is to enhance the resilience of our community. That could be through keeping the waste treatment plant and the water treatment plant running. It could also be through, adding some resilience and survivability for our community members. Both of those are reasonable. They probably have pretty different project costs and considerations. So like, I think that selection process is like, where is it? What does it do? What's the required size and cost associated with that? It seems like we should size something that can be palatable to the town budget and mostly covered by the ERA grant.
So just to add to, I'm sure many of you are already familiar about the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. USDN has like one of the best resilience hubs kind of checklist and steps. And a big part of that is it has to be connected to the community, and it also has to be something that, again, is that blue sky concept that's like used all the time, right? And that might not be appropriate for this microgrid project. I think it's worth considering, do we have staff support at the community center, right? Like there is a community center manager, there's staff there. Like this would have to be something that would have to be really a collaborative project if you wanted to do like a full resilience hub. It's a lot of partners and a lot of collaboration. So I can plug that USDN, but it's a cool resource.
Yeah, I'll just mention that I recently joined that because we allocated funds for the membership dues. So yeah, I'm in now.
Great.
Can I suggest that maybe we restart the energy subcommittee that I had seen around? And I know that Jack mentioned he wanted to work on this proposal, and Rab, I think your expertise would be super helpful here. And then we have, we can meet with Andrew Bliss of the wastewater treatment plant and talk to him about his ideas, as well as just the wastewater treatment plant in general, and explore this idea of a resilience hub as well.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest the same thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just a quick comment that I support, expanding this to include a resilience hub as long as that doesn't hinder us getting an application in for full consideration of this grant. Doesn't jeopardize the grant otherwise.
I am absolutely seconded. Not that that's a motion, but like
I mean, I think as long as we can get the resources together to put something in, I think that's the first target, and we can kind of expand the scope as we have the resources to support that.
Yeah. And I'll just say that with the grant, so far I haven't really seen anything that says specifically resilience hub. It's more about like energy. So I don't know that the grant would cover a resilience hub. I would have to do more digging into that just to note.
Can I, in order to, what is the sequence for like the necessary internal approvals that we need in order to submit for that?
I can talk about that a little bit. This is really a board decision to apply for the grant. And so I think what you would be doing is recommending this action. So what I would recommend is that if you want to give Cass direction to look at this, we can do that. And then she's going to need to meet with myself and with Rita, just so that we can understand, make sure we've got all the financial implications understood. And then we would write a staff report asking the board to apply for the program. And that staff report would talk about fiscal considerations, background, reasons for doing this, how it might align to strategic plans and goals, and those kinds of things. The board would approve it, and then we would apply. That's the typical process.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard a timeline of February, and I think the next DOT meeting is not until the second week in February. Is that right?
It's February 4th or 5th, whatever the Tuesday is there.
It's the 4th.
Is there one later in February planned?
Yep, the second meeting
The
is
18th.
yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, I have them memorized. I'm on them,
Okay.
so.
Awesome, Brittany.
So I believe the concept paper is due on the 27th. So it's not even the actual application, so we don't need to have all the letters of commitment and all the plans and everything worked out. We just need to have a 7-page proposal essentially. And yeah, so that is February 27th would be when that's due.
And is there a step where that proposal is encouraged or discouraged, or?
Yeah, sorry, it is. They let you know afterwards if they encourage or discourage. Even if you're discouraged, you can still apply. But you have to submit the concept paper to apply.
Awesome. So, Jonathan, to summarize that sequence, SAB would recommend that Cassidy continue with this. Cassidy works with you to explore it further and bring a proposal to the BOT in like hopefully February 4th. So there's time for review and turnaround before a second Board of Trustees meeting. Is that like?
We probably want to bring a full. Yeah, I think that'd be okay to do that. We, I think, we'd have Britt there too. So I think we'd work together and we'd work with Rita, our treasurer, just to make sure we're all good on all the details. But that would probably be the right process that you just identified.
Okay. And
quick question, just to clarify, does it need to be a discussion item on the 4th and then an action item on the 2 weeks after that?
Maybe it depends on the fiscal note of this and like what we look at like over the long term in the analysis. And I don't really think that it's a significant one. It is a better practice to do what you just mentioned. And so that's always what I would suggest if we can. But I think, it just depends on the situation a little bit. So I think we could definitely go that route though.
It's probably not a bad idea too. That way we pretty much present what would be final. And then we're really just getting like, yep, this is good to go the 18th. And we're still meeting that 27th deadline too. So it's probably not a bad idea. And then that just gives Cass, John, and I and Rita more time to, if there are edits, then we can edit it real quickly and it's good to go by the 18th to still hit that deadline. So I think that's a great point, Melody.
I think this question is mostly for Cassidy. We talked about a few different considerations at this point. What what do you need? How can we support? Like, if we were to say, like, yes, we think this is worth moving forward with, what would you need from us, or just generally, in order to get started and have a shot at getting this together by the 4th? If
Yeah.
if as you dig into it, it continues to make sense.
Yeah, so we are setting up a meeting with NRail. It'll be like an introductory meeting, and then they have 8 hours allocated. So I guess I would like for anyone interested. So I'm thinking Jack and or Rab, which I don't know that Rab is on this meeting anymore. But yeah, if you would be able to meet with NRail and there's Rab, and also meet as a subcommittee to go over, the concept paper. I mean, I definitely would work on drafting it, but obviously would need you to look over it, to add your ideas. I honestly think we just should have like a meeting about what we want to go with, because there are so many options right now. So I don't know, do we need to follow some kind of voting process to create the subcommittee or appoint people? I can't remember if we did that with the scorecard.
I think
Sorry,
John's
having
looking.
unmuting issues. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. What I was saying was technically we never disbanded it.
Okay.
So probably technically not, but let's do it because it's better to be safe than sorry. So I move to appoint Jack and Rab to a subcommittee to help Cass work on this energy improvements grant.
Second.
And I'll call a vote. Jack,
Aye.
Rich,
Yes.
Ty,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Is Rab back on?
I
Yes.
am, and I'm a yes.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. And I did just want to say, because this had been a question that in the last couple meetings about Excel, we met with them today, and they had a lot of great information for us. And just the main thing they said is that we will need to submit, our plans through their kind of interconnection screening process to make sure that what we have is going to work with their grid and connecting it. So I think that will be something that we will also consider as we get more into the technical details, and probably will come more with the grant application instead of the concept paper.
This is a dumb and open question, but is that interconnection process the same flavor of interconnection process that is like the biggest risk in most like renewables or grid projects?
I can speak to that a bit. Yeah, so the large scale grid interconnection projects that have such a long queue for interconnection are kind of off scale by like an order of 10 or 100 versus something like a vehicle charger. But I would say that siting within Nederland with the distribution that we have will at least require a new transformer. So yeah, I don't think that there is as much risk as siting like a grid scale renewables project, but it's definitely a major variable.
Okay, awesome. Somewhere between upgrading my home panel and a 100 MW solar project on the plain somewhere. Cool.
Yeah, definitely closer to the home. But
Great. That's awesome. Thank you.
Great. So I'll be in touch with Jack and Rab about setting up a meeting.
Great. So with that, we'll move on to our subcommittee updates. And I'll say I made a mistake and I called it rights of nature, and I should not have. It should be the natural environment delegates, the NEDs. So Cross Gold Mine did submit an application of sorts on December 16th. I did link that here. It's like a 600-page document because what the Department of Minerals and such is requiring of them basically is a whole new start to finish A to Z application for the mine if they want to expand operations up there, not just like a supplemental application, which is what they've been trying to do for a while. So they have submitted that. It is not, though, time for public comment, so that will come later on. Basically, what they told me is that it is not complete yet. They're still requesting more documentation from Grand Island Resources to consider the application complete. So we're kind of in a similar process to where we were a few months ago, just we have more documentation now. So that's all I have. And then also, I think, Rich, I'll connect with you later on to maybe set up a time to just touch base about what we want to do as far as, annual reporting and what that kind of looks like. So yeah.
I'm at your service, Melody.
Perfect.
just for my familiarity, Melody, given that this is outside of the municipality of Nederland, what is the proposed action that SAB address this application from Cross?
I think right now, there's nothing to do, but eventually, if they deem a complete application and it goes through, there will be a public comment period, and we would all be qualified as Nederland residents, as well as some as the outside area, to comment on that submission. And so we could put together, if we felt we had issues with the expansion of the Caribou mine up there, we could put together comments that the public could make en masse to try to, protect our natural resources. And of course, that all comes down to what parts of the application are wrong, etc. I know the Boulder Watershed Collective is also keeping tabs on this. So there's other places that we'll get more information as we start to understand what exactly they're trying to do up there.
Okay, and as an advisory board, have we gotten clarification from the Board of Trustees about what delegates to NEDs can say in their capacity as delegates, or just that aside from their capacity as private citizens?
No, other than we are a subcommittee of the Nederland Sustainability Advisory Board, and we are private citizens.
I would definitely recommend against representing yourself as the town of Nederland unless you bring that to the board. I think that would be okay if you get their approval.
Oh, absolutely. That would be the process. Like I said, right now we wait and watch and we see what develops. If we wanted to make a public statement we would be advising that the town of Nederland make the statement and ask the BOT to do that. If we were going to organize an educational campaign for residents and ask residents to sign on for that, we'd also go to the BOT, present, this is a project we want to do, and ask for their approval.
Yeah, thanks for
And
clarifying.
we'd vote on it. We'd vote on it at SAB first of like, yes, do we want to pursue, commenting on the mine? So, yeah.
Is there further comment on Ned's and the Caribou mine?
I can do that. Is that okay, Melody? I can provide an update.
As far as I'm
there's-
not understanding your question, Jack.
Oh, I think maybe I'll just recall it. I think I was asking whether are we still are there still things to discuss on the Caribou mine, like on that update? Jonathan is nodding yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
My mute's not working either. I apologize. So we received information that the Caribou Mine has initiated their process for what is essentially a mining permit. It is a more stringent mining permit than they previously had, and it would have additional environmental impact assessments done to it. But this is a planning process, and so there's several criteria involved that the decision will be made based upon. The application was supposed to be done by like January 17th. They were able to receive an extension because the application was deemed not complete. The new date of application completion needs to be February 24th. We are working with the case manager for this at the state level, and they're kind of indicating to us when the process for that is complete. When that is done, there will be a public engagement process, and they're supposed to put notice of this in our local paper, but we're being careful about that just to make sure that they put it in the Mountaineer and not in like the Post or something like that. So that's something to watch for. That will initiate the public process in this, and there's several criteria. I think there's 8 of them, and it's environmental concerns, community engagement, kind of things along those lines. And there will be a public process for comment and potentially a hearing. There doesn't have to be legally a hearing, but they can call one, and they will likely if there is sufficient community engagement on the project. So what the board has done so far is on the 21st, they heard an update from me in my staff report, just indicating that this application process is ongoing. We'll continue monitoring the situation. I'm happy to talk to any of you if you want to talk further about this, and just make sure that you're connected to the right places so you get emails and notifications and things like that. And as more information becomes available, all of their application documents will be public, and so they'll be able to be, if you guys wanted to look at them, you could. But that's kind of where the project stands right now. One note, the Wolf Tongue Mill property used to be used for milling operations, and Planning Commission recently removed milling and mining from the use table for that property, and that was before we knew about this application, but those cannot currently occur within the town of Nederland, those activities. Do you guys have any questions about anything I can answer specifically for you?
I did a lot of reviewing of environmental impact statements and writing comments on federal comment periods. So I'm happy to put my knowledge to good use on something here. And I'm interested to see, because I know I've talked to a lot, some of the people that work up at the gold mine and what they feel like they're doing, and they're trying to make mining more sustainable. And so I'm really interested to dig more into this and really see what they think that means. So.
I am not super familiar, certainly not as much as I imagine Melody is, but isn't the Wolf Tongue site a Superfund site? And would any activities be permitted on that site?
It is not a Superfund site, and Superfund sites do allow for activities to occur. They're just monitored by a different part of the EPA. So as an example, in Clear Creek and Gilpin County, the entire 400 square miles of both counties is a Superfund site. And so what happens is there's additional processes that have to be gone through when it is when something affects something that is monitored by the Superfund site, which in that case is water or at times waste rock. And so definitions become important. But for instance, if that mine were to be sold, what would happen is there would have to be what amounts to like a level 1 brownfields assessment on it. And there would have to be certain disclosures that are made when it is sold that indicate what the EPA is concerned about. So it's not presently designated, and it would go through that's a pretty significant process to do that. But if it were, it would still be something that could be allowed. It would just go through something like this DMO process, which it's called the Designated Mining Operation process. And it amounts to the same thing. It creates additional environmental remediation requirements for any operator of mining activities on the site.
Okay, so
Yeah,
when I Google Wolf Tongue Mill Superfund and the profile comes up, it's just because there's some blanket area designation.
Wolf Tongue is different. That's a different property. This is the Cross Mine, which is up on Caribou.
yeah, I was just gonna say there's two different things. So the location in town that is the Wolf Tongue Mill is down by the Frog Ponds, back on the end of First Street. If you go back behind like the RTD, that area, that old abandoned mill site. And then the Cross Gold Mine that is putting in this application that we're referring to that we maybe might want to comment on is up at Caribou.
Right. Okay. Thanks for catching me up.
I got nothing more on that. If we want to move on to the scorecard.
Yeah, actually, could we circle back to the ERA? Because I don't think we closed the book on the ERA grant. I guess just in terms of we formed the meeting, we formed the subcommittee. Is SAB on board with encouraging Cassidy to pursue that?
Yes.
Is that something we need to motion?
I think my motion was that we established you guys on the subcommittee to help her do the grant.
I think you guys are good. You really just need like a nod of 4 there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless there's anything left in the mind's scorecard. So great. In the agenda that was sent out, there were 2 links to the original scorecard, which we've done some light revisions to, mostly around adding information and context and references and updating the language, since I think it was probably last revised in the early teens. And we would, if folks have had a chance to review that, that could be really good. We added a bit of clarification around what and how the scorecard is to be used based on our interpretation of how it's already been in use, and kind of clarifying what happens when someone chooses not to respond to one of the questions. But that's kind of the high level summary. Have folks had a chance to look at it at all, or would they like to take a few minutes to review at this time?
I did look at it, but I'm having a hard time picking out the exact changes. So that's what I'd love to go over.
Mm-hmm. Like the specific changes, like the wording changes?
Yes.
Okay. We can go back and pull the track changes version of the document, so you can look through that and circle back at that time.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll just say the track changes version is a little messy. So hopefully it's, you know, clear what things have changed. But I will send I think we have a Word document version of that, so I'll be sure to send that out after this meeting.
Yeah, like I know one main point that we had talked about was how we wanted to address natural gas, you know, so I'm curious, like what, if anything, were the changes made around that, you know, and then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the time the original scorecard was written, natural gas was like still a best in class technology in terms of sustainability. And I think at this point that, you know, that perspective is its time has passed pretty generally. Like so natural gas has been pulled out of the positive section and moved into the not positive section. If that makes sense. And you can see that in a couple of places, mostly in the energy section of the new document.
does anybody else have questions about it? Or were there any other major topics that you guys noted going through it that you were like, oh, we need to address this part?
I think the other major theme was just a more comprehensive nod towards resiliency. That's kind of would be the other. I think at the time the original scorecard was written, we had not locked in the effects of climate change like we have now. And so there was less of a focus on how do you build resilient communities in the face of that. There actually were a lot of pieces of that language in there, or things that affected that language. But we made it a bit more cohesive throughout the document. So it's something that you can see on a regular, like within each question is like, you know, how does this support sustainability and resilience?
Yeah, I would say, and I can send this out with the link as well, but I think the main parts to focus on in your review would be looking at the page of our Netherlands definition of sustainability, because a lot of that language was updated, and I think that is really important because it's setting the stage, and it's something that applicants would read, hopefully, before submitting. So that would be something to talk about next time after everyone's gotten a chance to review. Looking at kind of similar to Melody's question about natural gas and just clean energy in general, and using the words clean energy and renewable, especially in section 1, energy conservation and production. Looking at the guidelines that were added. So Jack found some guidelines. Where did you pull these from again?
They're from lead communities, so they're just like a lot of the language was there wasn't really anything concrete in them. And so rather than really making significant changes to that language, we added like a reference point for like the pulling from lead communities. This is kind of an accepted norm within the industry of like one way you could think about that. So for example, like there's some language in there about disturbance to ecosystems and uplighting and light pollution. We reference kind of the key standards from LEED for that, for example.
And I now thinking about it, I think we should include something about the guidelines kind of on that page, where we talk about the structure and rating, and just mention like where it comes from.
Yeah, that would be worth doing for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, or sorry, not thank you, but good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I was just gonna say the questions as well, just looking at the topics, because some of the names did change just to better reflect the updated language and what was included in the category. And I will send that list of things to look at as well. And I would encourage everyone to make comments on the new scorecard link, just so that we have that to reference. So when we come back to talk about it as a group, we have comments that we can look at. And actually, John, I have a question. So if we have a shared Google document and it is publicly accessible, can board members comment and respond to comments on the Google Doc? They cannot. Okay.
I
Never
would
mind.
not even use a public copy. You guys shouldn't be doing that if there's a possibility for a quorum. If we need to do that, if there needs to be a collaborative document, we should probably also use Office because it's our secure platform. And so I think what we could do is talk offline and I could come up with a solution that will work for you. But let's just figure out. I might have a couple questions I just need to figure out and I'll make it. What if, would you guys be open to using a SharePoint or a Teams kind of setup, or?
I mean, I don't have any Office products personally on my computer, so I'm not sure how I'd access it.
We can
SharePoint.
figure it out from the town if you're willing.
I mean, I think another option to avoid that is that we can ourselves take a copy, make notes, and get those notes to the subcommittee that's working on this. And they can incorporate that feedback and we can discuss that at the next meeting.
Cass, I'll try to find you a solution for Google too. Give me like until tomorrow afternoon and I'll have something for you.
Okay.
And the thing, John, the thing we're trying to solve for is collecting comments on the new document.
I understand. It's just causes.
No, that was a question.
Yeah. I think we can figure it out. I know where you guys are going. I just need to get you there legally. So I'll take care of that part.
I appreciate that.
Great.
I had a quick comment. I noted that natural gas was put in the same bucket as coal and oil, petroleum products. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't know if that's a perfect equation or equaling the two is maybe not the best on the scorecard. And then I didn't see mention of heat pumps in the scorecard as an alternative, aside from what's mentioned as clean energy, which, heat pumps are not an energy generation source, but I think we might have some pushback if natural gas and if petroleum sources are negative and there's not anything listed on the scorecard as a reliable heating source up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I hear.
I second that, Rab. Thanks.
I'm hearing that like natural, and maybe some of this is my own bias, but I'm hearing that natural gas is not equivalent to coal or oil. Also perhaps not equivalent to heat pumps, but like that's on a spectrum at least for heating. Is that accurate? Or am I missing that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that seems reasonable. I think the kicker for me was seeing natural gas on the best in class, which throws me back to like early career working in commercial buildings and
It's the only thing that keeps my house warm in the winter though when the power's off.
Melody, I have a question for that about that
Yeah.
for SAB as well. I worry about the increasing policy of Excel turning power off up here with that issue that you just mentioned. And I'm wondering if SAB wants to come up with like a policy statement about that, potentially about how we handle that, because electrification is our goal, but like also how do we talk about what happens when the power gets turned off? And I think it would be good to just have like, I don't know if you guys want to discuss that. I just think it's something that's a little bit scary.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to hear Erica's input, because I know she's a lot more on top of this than I am. But yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. So I'm working on a beneficial electrification plan right now with Partners in Energy. And your propane heater will not work when the power is out. And your gas stove should not work when the power is out, especially newer ones. You can get a smaller battery backup to run a furnace that works off of natural gas or propane. And that would be a much smaller battery backup than like an air source heat pump, but it won't work. So your
Mine's
furnace
old and it does.
Yeah, I think a lot of the building stock has natural gas appliances that work when the power's out. Maybe not. So like part of that is when the entire system powers out, such as like Texas in 2021, like then you've got a gas problem, right? Like there's no supply through the lines. But we lost power last spring. We still had gas heat. But maybe that's looking at new buildings.
The newer heaters, they don't work. But older models without that electric input still will.
And then you worry about air quality indoors. So that becomes like a public health concern, especially with gas stoves. So that's the general consensus of that conversation for the county right now. And I think I'd love to have a conversation around natural gas, because my experience is anything beyond 3% fugitive methane emissions is as dirty or dirtier than coal. And so that becomes the state regulations, and not all states are equal. I know from my research 10 years ago, regulations have changed in the state, but methane is still odorless, tasteless, right? Like we can't actually track it to the extent that we need to be able to actually say, is that whole life cycle of that natural gas really cleaner than coal or other fossil fuel products? So I would advocate that like it does belong on the dirty list. I think it's an equity conversation up here because of the cold climate heat pumps and the cost. I think that's really important to keep in mind, but Excel is launching new rebates and it's going to be a game changer for commercial and residential spaces. Some of it is like at least 2 to almost 3 times more than what they've been offering. I think it's over $2,000 per ton, up to a certain, I think it's $8,000 or $10,000 maximum. So like even for me, I can't afford an cold climate air source heat pump, but this new Excel rebate through the clean heat plan that was just passed by the PUC is going to exponentially increase the money that's going to be on the table for that. They expect it to be available for the next 9 months or so. It's going to go fast. And then there's some huge rebates for new all electric developments. So there's some things happening in the space right now that I think aren't yet announced, but are coming very, very soon. And I think I agree. I think we do need to have some type of communication out to the public, but like in general, your gas powered appliances should not work when the power is out if they are newer. Like that's like a safety concern. So
Yep.
for sure that.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that. And it's that equity piece that I think is what most concerns me. And we've talked about natural gas a lot on the SAB board, John, and generally it's hard to come to a good consensus. But I think where I lean personally, and others can speak up if they support this, is natural gas is not where we want to move in the future. It's not where we want to put our efforts. But I also, we want to be careful not to make people out to be terrible if they have natural gas. What we want to do is in new construction, make sure that we have things that are in place for backup power where we don't need to be reliant on natural gas in the future, but we also don't want to condemn the old homes with the poor tenants in there that are paying $1,000 a month, and make them feel like they're doing something wrong because they can't convert.
Yeah. I mean, Melody's saying that, and I haven't been privy to all those conversations. And yeah, I think talking about electrification, natural gas, the harms, interior air quality, like I love this stuff. And I got carbon monoxide poisoning from my stove a few months ago. But no, I think my take on natural gas with regards to sustainability is it's acceptable, but not like not showing leadership. It's not like if you look at there's categories on the scorecard. There's like below par, there's like an acceptable level, and then there's like a level that's showing leadership and sustainability. And like I don't think you like if you're building new now, like natural gas is no longer like a way to show leadership on the sustainability front. Is kind of my basic take, is like it's an acceptable technology. Replacing your gas furnace is like a moderately complicated decision, but like building new with gas is like somewhat less complicated.
Yeah, definitely. And when we talk about the scorecard, maybe there's a way to incorporate a discussion around that into there, as far as specifying like in new construction projects, natural gas is not in the guidelines. For something that's a renovation, maybe it's a different consideration. I don't know.
I think what we're kind of all getting towards is that natural gas should be kind of on a like Jack was saying, natural gas should be on a spectrum, maybe marginally better than coal from its emissions and ash residue perspective, but then certainly well below other technologies that offer electrification advantages like heat pumps that are able to leverage an increasingly renewable grid. And then we might have a separate task to try to put some guidance about heating systems in a community that relies on them and traditionally has also burned wood, which isn't present on the scorecard either.
I think, is there not biomass? And maybe there's biogas.
Erica, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna maybe contribute a little bit more here. So I've just been exploring this recently, and about 80% of Boulder County's emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, come from transportation and the built environment. Boulder County has identified that based on their current trajectory, there's really no way that they're going to meet their climate reduction goals or emission reduction goals. And so I think I would advocate that on a sustainability scorecard, it's worth advocating for the best practices out there and really keeping in mind what is the goal. And the goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to keep us as close to 1.5 degrees Celsius as humanly possible. So I think it's worthwhile to share that and to keep that perspective as to the why. And then I also wanted to share, I just heard from Zach Schwenk, Deputy Director for the Oscar team at Boulder County. And we were talking about the LA fires, and he shared some information that in Louisville, those that are rebuilding from the Marshall Fire, which a large percentage of that work has been done, those that have rebuilt to date, 70% of those people have gone to the current energy code or stricter. And that includes all electric. And so they actually had just adopted their 2021 International Energy Code before the Marshall Fire happened. And they actually allowed exceptions for people that were rebuilding that lost their home in the fire. And still 70% of those people built to that code, even though they didn't have to, or stronger requirements. They're not seeing that in other parts of the country. The Sonoma fires, I think he said 6% of people actually built all electric. And so I just wanted to share that I found that really fascinating and insightful because people are building to these standards. And it's not the far-fetched effort that it was even just a couple of years ago. The costs have gone down, the technology is becoming more available, the installers are becoming more trained and more familiar with this equipment, they're more readily available in our area. And then we also have a lot of funding from DRCOG, from Excel, from the state. Who knows what's going to happen with the federal rebates, but there's a lot of money. I'm sure you guys are all aware of the Rewiring America page, but it's such an amazing resource for being able to stack all those data points and all that, the resources available.
Do others have any other comments on that part of the scorecard, that topic of natural gas? Do you feel, subcommittee, like you get a sense of where we're leaning as a whole board?
Yeah, John, do you think it would be helpful for us? You put forward almost like a call to put together a statement on our position with regards to natural gas. We've had a pretty healthy and lively discussion about it. Should we try and pull that into something that looks like something that's consolidated that captures that?
I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think it would be nice to have that. I think also I guess one of my questions for you in the DRCOG regional efforts, This question came up the other day, I guess, as they were talking about the natural gas plan and just the difference between, honestly, the difference between flat places and mountain places. That's where I think it really matters. And so I think being able to elucidate that statement for groups like that and other, like all the efforts that are happening, with heat pumps and things like that, I think it would be good just to be able to express that. And it may be something that we could work with on some of the other mountain communities, at least in the peak to peak on too, and just say, hey, these are things that are important to us. But I do think it's good to express things like that.
Do we have volunteers to take a stab at drafting? Or reviewing? Or trying it a different way. I'm happy to draft something based on this conversation, but I don't think I'd be comfortable sharing it without having other folks take a look at it.
The other option,
Yeah,
we could,
I'd say draft something and bring it back to the next meeting.
Great. Will do. Just add that to the plate. Great.
I do have a point about the first sentence of the document. And I think that, so the original one is sustainability as the conscious lens through which we view all issues. And I think there was something in that sentence that kind of got lost, where it feels like more in the second one, sustainability is just an approach to community planning and policy making.
Uh-huh.
And the original document more conveys the sense of it's a holistic, well, like what it says, to view your life the way that you are in the world. It's a way to view everything, not just policy and planning.
Okay. And what's the impact of that global view on?
It puts the reader, the Netherlands citizen, the person who's there in the picture of the paragraph and the action and what's happening, where we are all integral together and they're a part of that. I don't know if I'm explaining it in a way that makes sense.
So
I really like the way you asked what the impact was, Jack, and I think there could be a paragraph that precedes the first that is just labeled impact and describes some of the things Melody is saying.
And Melody, to summarize that, so it's the big thing that's missing in that first sentence is participation, or like bringing like a participatory lens to this document.
I think that's a part of it, but more so that sustainability is also an approach for business and economy. It's also an approach for recreation, right? It's more than just community planning and policy making.
Okay.
Like, we as the SAB board use it for community planning and policy making, but the entire community of Nederland, what is sustainability to us? It's a more encompassing thing.
Okay. We can add that back. And Rab, I think your idea of adding the like section 0 impact is valuable.
And we did have in there, in that first paragraph, Netherlands sustainability model is based on the understanding that the economy and social fabric are concentrically nested within the restraints. We're defining that nested model of sustainability, which was important at the time. Perhaps it's not so important now. Is that the case? Does everybody view sustainability now in that nested model?
I know I can speak from another city in Colorado's perspective of sustainability, one that tends to be a bit more conservative than here. And in Grand Junction, I heard similar nested model slash, you know, it's all interconnected sustainability encompasses economic, societal, and environmental sustainability. So I still think it's relevant. I think it might not be talked about as much because sustainability has been around for a bit longer now. But I know that people still talk about it that way.
Okay,
That might be
yeah.
That might be something for people to ponder and then come back with their thoughts.
Yeah, at the time that we did this the first time, a lot of people were still operating under the three-legged stool concept where, you know, society is held up by the other things. And so that at the time, like I said, it was something that we felt like we needed to define. I understand we have the picture there. But I would then put in there somewhere that this is Netherlands' definition of sustainability. That I think that's what that sentence was trying to clarify, is this is how Netherlands defines sustainability, because there's 100 million definitions of it, you know, so what do we define it as? And putting in either at the top, what is Netherlands' definition of sustainability, maybe, instead of just what is sustainability, or somewhere, just piecing that out.
If I could also nitpick a section, there was a piece of language that said attracting sustainable tourism. And I think that the word attracting tourism, even in I think the intention is, you know, transitioning existing tourism to be more sustainable, but might be a little bit controversial to put attracting tourism in the scorecard. So maybe just using a different word or different phrasing there.
Like a different word than tourism.
A different word than attract, because I think there
Attract,
are
okay.
a lot of folks in Netherlands who would say that we don't really want to attract tourism.
I'm not
but
100% sure how relevant that is anyway. Like, we can talk about that, but I don't know that that's part of the critical argument.
Well, the existing scorecard talks about attracting sustainable tourism.
Yeah, I think that there's some bigger policy implications there, and I think you would want to make a recommendation about that potentially. I think is what I'm trying to say. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think I'm wondering about the relevance, I guess.
So I think in regards to a project that's going through the scorecard, if it has a piece of it that brings sustainable tourism to Nederland, then we as the SAB board view that as a positive. And that's how I would understand that. Not necessarily that we are looking to attract more tourism in general, but just looking at projects that go through the scorecard, if they have a component where they are promoting sustainable tourism, that we like that helps build the social environment up here that is geared towards more sustainable activities, and that supports. Does that make sense?
I agree with that. I really like that word promote. I think that captures the sentiment well.
Hey, Melody, I'm just thinking back to like some of the events specifically that where there's potentially been a framing of sustainability or tourism. And I do appreciate communicating that it's not an or, this or that, it's actually an and it does have value to the scorecard, because I know that has been a point of contention in the past, you know, frozen dead guy days, right? Like, can we have both? Yes, we can, and that is a value.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually call back to an idea that Ty put forward to me, which is be really cool if Nederland had like a wild crafting festival, right? And we could support some sustainable crafting, some Bushman type things, you know, and really understand how tourism can be a way to bring forth sustainable education to the community and have it be a positive.
I'm just listening in, but I love that idea, and I bet Wild Bear Nature Center would be in on it.
And I actually have spoken to Wild Bear myself on doing classes like that, because they said they found this gap where they have kids classes and they have adult classes, but they don't have those in between classes. And I know this isn't necessarily relevant, but it's part of the conversation where we are teaching kids, you know, they're not kids anymore, they're preteens and teens, to kind of start learning this kind of stuff where they can be sustainable, it can be fun, you can be out in the woods and teach them respect and nurturing and caring for nature.
Yeah, and at the same time, you can bring, you know, intelligent minds into our community who might not otherwise visit Nederland, and maybe that can bring value as well. You know, I know another thing that has been talked about is like retreats. You know, there's all sorts of retreats that happen up here, and there's environmental professionals that come to retreats in our Rocky Mountains, you know, and how do we kind of, if somebody came to Nederland with an idea like that, we would be supportive of that, and that would be a good thing for the project going through the scorecard. So yeah, maybe there's another word we can find besides attract that captures that better, and maybe we can tease out a bit better what we mean by sustainable tourism. We don't just mean tourism that maybe is a little bit more sustainable on town. We mean tourism that's specifically focused on sustainability issues of sorts.
Yeah, I feel like the word ecotourism is one of the
One of the
so pretty-
buzzwords.
Oh, I was gonna say it's like one of the best ways to use the prefix eco these days. Like,
Okay, well, I think that the subcommittee then has a good idea based on this conversation of like how we want to reframe that. And we can keep thinking about it, but I think promote is a good alternative to attract.
What about entice or lure? I'm just kidding. Tempt.
Yeah, I opened that up with nitpicking, so I fully deserved.
I mean, it's here for the nitpicking.
Mhm. Anything else to talk about with the scorecard? And remember that we will have another opportunity to talk about it at the next meeting.
Yeah, and maybe Cassidy, to close that out on our end, we'll gather comments like we'll pull comments together 2 weeks before the week before our meeting so that we can give folks time to read, respond, send comments in. And Jonathan, you have time to pull together a secure technology solution for this.
Yeah, I would say right now, if you make your own personal comments, just send them to me. And that should be fine since I'm staff. And then yeah, I can share that with Jack for the subcommittee meeting. And so we're asking for comments, just find a date. So we want to say February 13th. I think it's 2 weeks before.
Sounds good.
Great. If nothing else on that, then I can just give a brief update for the zero waste subcommittee. So we met and still don't have much of an update on like the composting unit and the LED sign at the transfer station. I mean, back on January 8th when we talked with Mikkel from Boulder County. But they said that it's because there's still work at Allen's Park that is being finished up, and there's only really one team doing that work, so that's why things are on hold. I will be sure to let you know when those things roll out, because the Zero Waste Subcommittee wants to work on like an education campaign, an outreach campaign, that sort of thing, so that the people in Nederland and people who use the Nederland transfer station are aware of the updates, especially with the composting unit. And we're going to be working with Boulder County on that, possibly creating some kind of not ribbon cutting, but like event to invite people from the community to learn more. So that is in the works once we know more about the composting unit update. Yeah, and other than that, just when we get a new website, the whole town, we're going to be kind of revamping the zero waste page with more resources, and really just sustainability in general on the website. So I'll have more information about that once the website gets rolled out, which I'm not sure on the timeline of that either. Any questions on that?
I got none. I just am very happy that the subcommittee, is willing to get in there and work and do some things. So I'm just appreciative of what they're doing.
Great. Yeah, I'll let them know.
All right. If there's nothing else on that, are there any other subcommittees? I don't think so. I don't think I skipped any. Okay. CC4CA participation. Cass, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I have a meeting scheduled to talk more with someone from CC4CA. I believe her name is Anita. And then I just want to acknowledge that we have Erica now, and I believe you are the policy committee lead. So that gives us great insight as well. So with this item, we wanted to know if anyone besides Erica from SAB wants to serve on a subcommittee for CC4CA. I will be attending meetings, and we also have Tom Mahal, I can't say his last name, Mahalwood or something. And he will be attending CC4CA meetings as well. He's on the planning commission and used to be on the BOT, and just has the time to dedicate to that, just to keep us in the loop. Yeah, does anyone from SAB have an interest in serving on one of CC4CA's subcommittees, or just attending CC4CA meetings in general?
Can I ask real quickly how much interaction this board has had with CC4CA? And if you all would like to know about the subcommittees and like their specific focus area, if that would be helpful.
As a new member, I've had almost no interaction with CC4CA, so that'd be helpful to me, but we don't need to necessarily need to use everyone else's time if other folks are up to speed.
Well,
I think it would be helpful to go over it. Yeah.
Okay. So Nederland has been a member with CC4CA since 2018, and it actually came from one of the founding members of CC4CA, and we were looking at, okay, so how we didn't have staff at the time. Staff was identified as a priority for this board since I think 2012. Melody, I think that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong. And CC4CA pretty quickly came on our radar from the city of Boulder. They actually said, if you guys really want to have an impact as a small community, join CC4CA. And so they let us join. They kind of did a sliding scale initially, and then we advocated, and the Board of Trustees was in support of the membership dues the following year, and been members since. And the way that the group works is it is very focused on state legislation, and now represents 1 out of 4 Coloradans. And it is a non-partisan, climate-focused group, which is really cool, especially with where we are now in the federal political climate. But there's like a handful of boards. So there's a board of directors, there is a policy committee, and there's a legislative or ledge group. The ledge group is super focused on what's happening in the legislative session. So those meetings will kind of go through like what is actually on the agenda. They'll bring to that group questions like, what do we think about this? What are things we're not thinking about as far as equity, or, the impacts of this policy on transportation? Or for example, like the great bargain was something that came through legislation last year, and it paused like any new oil and gas legislation for the state for 3 years. And so that bill was actually brought to the ledge group and brought to the policy group, and like, you know, really have robust conversations about what are we missing, you know, what membership organizations or memberships in CC4CA have concerns with pieces of this policy, and how can we advocate as best as we possibly can. Some stuff like the great bargain, you know, those conversations are being had, you know, and so CC4CA was trying to advocate as best they could with the resources they had for their membership, which is Nederland. So I think there's 3 kind of large bucket, your board of directors, your ledge group, your policy group, and then within that, you want to make sure that any representative from this group has the voting power, and that's something that's really important to identify. Because there will be things that are voted on. You can also abstain. So if something that you're not sure if Nederland would support or if it's good for Nederland, you can actually abstain from that vote. The other really cool thing that makes CC4CA so unique is that its policy statement is every 2 years is updated, which is what we're doing now. So we're asking for feedback on the agenda tonight. So if you have feedback on that policy statement, please share it through that survey link, or feel free to send it my way or send me Cass. But it's a unanimous adoption. So every member in CC4CA has come in with the agreement that they support the policy statement. And so that allows CC4CA staff like Anita and Jacob and Lindsay to be able to, and the legislative staff, to be able to know kind of what the group supports and what they don't, and what their priorities are. With that said, the policy statement, it has been refined over the years. The group started, I believe, in 2016, and it's gotten much bigger since then. And so you'll see that there's 5 kind of guiding principles that start the policy statement off, like incorporating equity, climate action, you know, these kind of general statements. And then within the details, the specific policies, they're still kept pretty high level. So you'll see, for example, one of the policy statements talks about like new technologies, and it talks about hydrogen technologies, and it doesn't mention nuclear. And so that's very intentional, because we don't necessarily want to give a broad blanket approval of engaging with nuclear. We actually want to have it a higher level, so that when these opportunities arise, we bring it back to these committees and we say, hey, like what are things that we're concerned about? And we have those robust conversations as an organization and as representatives. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you have questions, please reach out. It is an incredible organization. The retreat is in June. We ask that all of the membership representatives review the policy statement, and then for each of those entities, they adopt the policy statements or bring suggestions as they need to. And then once we hit the retreat in June, which representatives are all welcome to attend, that will again have like that, all the comments and the feedback incorporated at that point, and then it's just adopting any kind of updates during the June retreat.
Yeah, and one of the big things that CC4CA was big on pushing in the past that really helped Nederland directly was the ability to purchase solar from other counties. They're also a big proponents of supporting the types of community energy that we need to be able to be 100% renewable here in Nederland. So they really are an arm we can use, because it's so many communities together. So yeah. And the more Nederland voices we have on these boards, the more we understand what's going on, the more we understand what our opportunities are in the future, the more we have a voice on these policies and where we're pushing and putting our energy.
And Erica, I just had a question since you're here and we're talking about this. But with the voting power, believe you said it's just one person representing the jurisdiction that has the voting power. And I assume that for like the town of Erie, you have appointed someone to have that voting power. And I guess I'm just wondering, is that you? And also, how do you make those decisions on like if you're going to abstain or not? Does that go through your sustainability board and your council or board of trustees equivalent? What is that process for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have council members that are the primary and the alternate, and then I'm kind of third in that line. And then it depends on who is present in the meetings. So for example, like I'm the representative for the policy committee, but like our board of directors meetings, one of our council members is there and present, and they take responsibility for representing the community. There's a lot of different ways that it can be done. So some communities just have staff representation, some communities are just elected officials. I think in the past, Alan Apt really has been active. I was also one of the representatives for Nederland. It kind of depends on where the interest is, and then what you all decide. And then if there is something that's controversial, you would, depending on timing, you could bring that back to the board, ask for their feedback. CC4CA staff will also reach out and engage representatives to say, like, is there any concern with this specifically, or how can we best represent your community? Jonathan, I see your hands up.
I think that I hate to do this to you guys, but I really think this is something that maybe what you would do if you would like a SAB person to represent CC4CA, because that is something that Cass should bring to the board as well, because they've had this similar conversation. And I think that they would like a board member to represent the town, but I think they'd be open to the SAB representation. And so I would recommend, if that is what you want, I mean, you guys are the kind of the experts in this field, right? And so I think they'd be open to that. And I think that's what should happen here. Is if you guys would like to have that representation, the direction to Cass to see about that, and we could do that in an AIM and then present that at the next board meeting. We could get that done pretty quickly.
Yeah, as Erica said in the past, it has been a BOT member. It's Alan Apt was the BOT liaison to Nederland. And I think also there's value in that you can also attend and not vote. And that the more participation we have as a community, the more it benefits us.
And just to add into, it's board of directors meetings, it's ledge group and policy committee. Those are kind of the three large groups. So you could just prioritize the board of directors meetings, or you could identify representatives and alternates for all three meetings. So that's a lot. I don't think that's something that Nederland has engaged in to date with all three of those different meeting times. They typically meet once a month. But it's just something to consider.
Yeah, I appreciate that explanation. And I guess the question is for SAB, do one of you want to represent and be the voting power at the CC4CA meetings? Do we want someone from SAB to do that? I will still be attending. And if so, then we can follow the process John laid out. And if not, then I think it would be best to engage the BOT to see if one of them would take on that role. But that's just my opinion.
I'm not tied to whether a SAB member has voting power or not. But I would like another SAB member to be involved. And if nobody else volunteers themselves, I suppose I will volunteer myself. Policy is my background, so.
Awesome. Great. So I guess next steps would be then determine who we want to have voting power. And that might, John, do you think that's a discussion to have with the BOT?
I would bring it to the BOT as a recommendation of SAB. I think that's okay to say that you guys would like that. I think they're willing, my guess is they'd be willing to entertain that thought because it is a priority that has been expressed to me as well, that we do have representation there. But I think that that's a decision that they need to be involved in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's kind of two questions there. It's one, does someone from the BOT want to be the voting power or the alternate and attend those meetings? And two, if they don't, if no one from the BOT wants to attend or can attend, then yeah, we should have an item to like basically appoint Melody to that voting power, and then whoever we determine.
Or Cass, if they feel like it should be a staff thing.
Right, yeah.
I'm not opposed to that either, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like Erica, you're saying we need the primary voting power and then the alternate as well. So it could just be that it's we're in those positions however they prefer.
Yeah. And I almost like that model because not every one of us is necessarily going to be at all the meetings where there's going to be a vote. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Then yeah, I will bring that to the BOT. I'll talk with John more about when that makes sense. And then yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the policy survey that Erica mentioned. I believe it's due February, like early February. I don't want to say the wrong date. But I'm not sure on that one either, if that would be before submitting that, if it would need to be approved by the BOT if we did want to submit any kind of like recommendation for updating their policy statement. Yeah. So I guess if anyone has strong opinions, then that would be something to share.
All right. Anything else on that topic? I suppose I think I'm subscribed to the CC4CA emails, but I don't know if I'm subscribed to meeting information. Is that in the regular newsletter that I get?
Probably not, because I was receiving the newsletter and I didn't receive like the agenda packet before the last meeting. So when I meet with Anita, I'll share your email so that you're getting that as well. Because I had to ask her to add me too.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Is there interest in scheduling a wild bear site visit for the sustainability board?
Heck yeah. Maybe.
I've seen it, so I could take it or leave it, but I'll go again.
I guess. Yeah. What they mentioned was that they would prefer a weekday, like that works best for them because that's their work schedule, but that they would make a Saturday in February work if we would prefer that. So I guess that's another point to consider. Is when would work for you. And if someone doesn't want to go, like since Melody's already seen it, and anyone else, then also let me know. So then we're scheduling with only the people who want to go.
I'm interested and would love to see it during daylight hours.
Great.
I'm interested. This is Ty. I'm interested. Jonathan, was the BOT talking about doing a tour of that as well?
Yeah, we're still scheduling, but yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll see it one way or another, I guess.
Would it make sense? Well, that might be too many people to try and schedule around one day. So maybe we just keep it SAB.
We could try. I'm willing to try if you are.
I mean, I think that would probably be fine if we could do SAB and BOT at the same time, providing schedules line up.
Do we have an idea of what they're thinking for their site visit date time?
I tried to pull more information from them during our discussion, and really they just said come back to them with a time that we want to do it and they'll make it work.
Yeah.
So my guess is that with job schedules, a Saturday would be preferable because then you can do it during the daylight hours, especially if people are working outside of Nederland.
Anybody opposed to a Saturday?
Good question.
I think it'd be awesome for SAB and the BOT to go together if that works. It sounds like a plus, not a neutral to me. Saturdays work from my perspective, or no objection there.
Yeah. So I guess
Yeah, I agree with the Saturdays, just can't do February 8th.
okay. And does anyone else have a Saturday that doesn't work for them in February? It would be the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd. And I don't know if we do the 1st because that's coming up quickly. But
Not that I am the end all and be all, but the only one that would work for me is the 22nd.
okay.
I think the 8th would be harder for me, but all the others work, and I can make the 8th work.
So just to get this straight, Jack, you say all of them work. The 8th is a maybe?
No, the 8th
Or-
is a yes. Well, I just would be like ever so slightly grouchy about it.
Okay. And then Rab had said no to the 8th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then Rich, you said that the 22nd does work.
Yes.
Okay, great. Anything else? I guess Erica, did you want to join?
Yes, please.
Okay.
But I don't work around my schedule, so I'll try to make whatever works for everybody else.
Okay. And then Ty, did you have any dates that don't work?
No, I make my own schedule so I can make it work.
Okay. Well, that makes it easier to have fewer dates that don't work. So great. We'll aim for the 22nd. But yeah, we can talk about inviting the BOT members as well and seeing if the 22nd works for them. Great.
And then lastly, anything else to talk about? Any other updates from UCAS?
Yeah, so well, this one's kind of joint from Erica and I because we talked about something that we all kind of referenced earlier in this meeting, is the changes at the federal level, the kind of limbo we're in right now, and the, desire to restate our commitment to combating, climate change, especially since, like he did in 2017, pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, or pulled the US out of it. It's happened again. And back then, Erica was giving me some historical context, that Mayor Larson at the time signed a basically mayoral support for the Paris Climate Accord. That was like for mayors in the US, just to show that even though the federal government is saying one thing, this is what we actually want to promote. So yes, I'll let Erica talk a little bit more about what kind of ideas you have.
Yeah. So one of the things that's come out just with reaching out to some other local municipalities is the America is all in. So if you all have a computer, you want to type that in. It's a commitment that's just focused on reducing climate emissions. So it's basically recommitting to the federal government goal of having emissions by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050, despite Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. And a lot of municipalities have signed on already, including Nederland. So I thought that was awesome. I don't know if anybody has any context as to like who signed the town on. So, but it's a really neat commitment, and it's also something that a lot of businesses have done. So for you all that are related to businesses, check it out. It's a pretty easy commitment form, and it's pretty clear as far as what the goal is. So we had talked, Cass and I had talked about, other ways that we might want to support the Board of Trustees and potentially SAB to support, whether that's the World Health Organization, whether that's the Paris Climate Accord, whether that's DEI. He's also removed all talk of environmental justice off the federal websites. So I wanted to have a conversation with you all to see what are your thoughts? Like Cass mentioned in 2017, Mayor Larson did send on to the mayor's commitment for the Paris Climate Accord. So if there are other things, I think it's also worth mentioning the Climate Emergency Declaration. I believe that was adopted in 2021. But if there's other things like that this group could champion, I think it's worth having that conversation.
I don't normally talk much, but I'm going to talk much here because I'm a firm believer in the US Constitution. Frankly, it's the only thing I really care about as a sort of a religious sort of thing. The Paris Climate Accord is a violation of the US Constitution because the treaty clause says any treaty has to be approved by 2/3 of the Senate. It never went to the Senate. The foreign power of the United States to engage in international negotiations is exclusively pursuant to the treaty clause. The president and 2/3 of the Senate have to agree. I think it is ridiculous and foolish for a town or city in the United States to try to circumvent the Constitution by involving itself in some type of international agreement, especially one that's unconstitutional. So I object to doing anything about this. I think it's a waste of time, and frankly, it's unconstitutional.
Thanks for that, Rich. I think that's really important perspective.
Yeah, I think that there's not, in the context of Netherlands' interest of whether or not to make a pledge to reduce climate emissions, I don't think there's an interest in signing on the Paris Accords themselves, but just making a similar commitment. I don't know if Erica, you could clarify if if any commitment through the forum you suggested would actually have any international implications, or if it would just be a commitment to reduce emissions.
Yeah, I think, Rob, to Rich's point, it does talk a lot about the Paris Climate Accord, but the text itself is committing to what the US has previously committed to as far as reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And that is to target that 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, which we know are beyond at this point. So I think it's worth exploring, and this isn't the only option. We could also do something ourselves, right? That is a resolution that the staff develops to bring to the Board of Trustees to say, Nederland this is important to us, and we would like to keep this focus and this commitment to reducing our climate emissions. I think the important perspective for me is telling our neighbors and our residents, like, this is still really important. Like, this is still something that we're focused on, even though that federal landscape is changing with Trump's leadership. I don't know, Rich, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. I hear you on the Congress and the Constitution. That makes a lot of sense. Are there other ways that we could support these priorities?
We can,
when in many
my
ways they're under
position is,
attack.
we can do whatever we want to support priorities, but the Paris Climate Accord should have been a treaty. If we want to have an agreement with another country that binds our country, it has to be a treaty. President Obama violated the Constitution by signing something and not sending it to the Senate for the Senate's approval. It's a violation of the Constitution. And when you do something that's not worth the paper it's printed on, the new president can come in and say it's not in effect anymore because it was never done as a treaty like the Constitution says. And it's very clear under constitutional jurisprudence that the sole prerogative for international relations is with the president and Congress. Now, we can do whatever we want, but to try to tie it to some unconstitutional non-agreement with another country or other countries, to me, is ridiculous, a waste of time, will not accomplish anything. And frankly, I think that I believe that when the town board takes an oath of office, they mention the Constitution of the United States. And therefore, I think anything that we do has to be in compliance with the Constitution of the United States. And I know I maybe sound ridiculous, but to me, the Constitution of the United States is much more important than the Bible or anything else anybody swears upon. And it's a very personal issue to me when people just decide to ignore it, like, in my opinion, President Obama did by not making the Paris Climate Accord a treaty that the Senate approved. And I agree that I probably sound ridiculous to you all, but it's something that's very important to me.
Rich, for the record, I don't think you sound ridiculous at all. I think it's a really important perspective to share, and I really appreciate you sharing it. And it's information, it's data. Like you said, that's how the system works and how it should have been done.
But I'll also say, as a member of this board and a co-chair, we are way beyond our time for this meeting, and I do not want to elongate it. So I'm not going to say anything else.
I understand what you're saying, Rich, and I think that essentially the legal workaround, like Erica mentioned, is we're not technically signing on to them. We're passing resolutions declaring that we agree with the goals set forth in the Paris Accords. And so it's a little it's a little workaround. And so I understand if you, I understand why you feel the way you feel, and it's totally valid. And I think I myself personally would say that I do agree with pursuing some sort of resolution at the Board of Trustees level, because again, they're mostly symbolic in putting forth our stance that despite whatever the federal government decides to do, we are still going to work towards lowering emissions, increasing green energy, etc., and putting our support behind other communities that are saying the same thing. And so that's where I would lean and say, yes, I would support something like this, because I want the voice of lots of people together to be heard, I guess. So that's kind of where I come at it. I guess a nod of whether to bring this back as another agenda item next month or not. Do we want to talk more about this? Yes or no?
I do not object to discussing anything, even things I disagree with. So I'm totally fine with bringing it back next time as an agenda item. But I object to the board or the town making reference to support of an unconstitutional, in my opinion, non-treaty. So, but that's just my position, but I certainly don't object to discussing it.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think coming back to this next time is probably the best course of action given the time.
Jack, any opinions?
No opinions. Although it sounded like we had R2D2 somewhere. That's what the smile was for. It's a cool sound.
I'm sorry about that. That is my text message notification, and it is in fact R2D2.
Yes.
So,
I was trying to identify what that noise was. Thank you for knowing that it was R2D2. Ty, any opinions on whether to discuss this more or not?
No, because I'm sitting pretty neutral, because I agree with Rich, but I agree with you, so I'm just gonna opt out of an answer on that one.
Okay, well, I think then it seems like we should bring it back for another discussion, and that doesn't mean we have to decide anything next time either. But just kind of an evolving discussion of if we want to propose some sort of statement for the BOT to sign on to or not, in reaction to kind of the federal administration change that is happening. Any other updates? Before we sign off, we do have Meg, who joined us partway through the meeting. She showed up at the community center and we were not there. So she was able to hop on and she's been listening. So if you want to introduce yourself, feel free. At the beginning of the meeting, what we did talk about is there's going to be an alternate SAB position opening up. So just note that. And if you don't want to say anything, you don't feel compelled, but you're welcome to introduce yourself.
No, I would love to. I've been wanting to get involved with this board since I moved to Nederland about a year ago, but I figured I should at least like get to know the town a little bit more before I start getting involved in politics. But I'm very passionate about sustainability, and I hope to be able to get involved and make somewhat of a difference at a local level if I can. So I'm excited to be here, and it's all very interesting. I don't mind just like hanging out and listening in for a couple sessions if there's not an opening for me, but yeah, excited to join in whenever there's an opportunity.
Meg, this is Rich. I'm one of the co-chairs. You should not feel that you have not been in town long enough. I was in town, I think, 2 months before I was a member of the board, and it is a valuable thing to do. And I think we will have a opening, at least for an alternate, in the near future, depending on what the Board of Trustees does. So if you're interested, I think there's probably some type of online application on the town's website that you should fill out and make sure Jonathan gets his hands on it.
Okay, great. I'll keep an eye out for that, and I'll go ahead and find that when I'm figuring out the next meetings as well.
Yeah, and if you want any more information, feel free to reach out to me. My email is sustainability@nederlandco.org, and I can also connect you with the application and anything else.
Perfect. Thank you, Cassidy.
Yeah, and we're always happy to have community members attend meetings and give input. And so if you feel like at any point, during a meeting, before you're appointed to the board and you have a comment or anything, feel free to raise your hand or let us know if you have a comment or want to say anything. And then, yeah, we will have that alternate position open it up. We meet on the fourth Thursday of every month. And the meeting agenda, if you go to the meeting agenda document, that should always have that meeting link in it, the correct virtual meeting. So even if we're not meeting in person, or even if we are meeting in person, you'll always be able to access meetings through that link as well.
Is there a way to know if the meetings in person are happening or not?
So it should be on the agenda once we know about it. What happened this time is that it was today that the decision was made because of the emergency in the building that we couldn't be there. And so I don't know if Jonathan and Cass, if there's a better way that we can update those things more responsively when something like that happens, like on the town calendar or something. I guess it would be helpful to know, Meg, how did you find out about the meeting time in the first place? What was your source of information?
I think it was the town website, and it had like a calendar with all the different like town politics meetings. Yeah, but just the lady at the front desk at the community center is the one that gave me Melody's number. So
we're trying. Our platform is not the best, and we've been trying to fix that issue, and we'll continue to do it. We're hopefully we can make it better, and that doesn't happen again. So
no
apologies that happened.
Totally fine. I only live like a couple blocks from the community center, so it's just a very cold walk. Not too bad.
Yeah, perfect. So at the top of the agenda, if we're only meeting virtually, there won't be a Nederland Community Center there, and it'll say virtual meeting only, and then have the link on the agenda, which is a little bit more reliable than the town calendar right now.
Okay, got it. I'll try to figure that out beforehand next time.
I think if anybody in the community wants to be notified, they should probably be able to be on whatever text message distribution we as board members get. It's because it's not like it's classified information. And so if any community member wants to be on that list, they should be able to be on that list.
they
That's a
can't.
fantastic
That's-
idea. The text
That's
we
not
get.
possible. I apologize. That's not a thing we can do. But there is a way to sign up for notifications about the agendas on the website, which is the Civics Web website. If you guys hold on a second, I'll put a link here, and then we do have we've been looking at trying to find some software that allows us to do that, like to the public, but it doesn't currently exist. But if you look in the chat here, this website is where it's turned off. I'll email this to you guys. And Meg, I don't know if I can give you my contact information. It's really easy. It's just townadmin@nederlandco.org. And I will put this link up publicly to have Peter do it tomorrow. But basically, you can sign up for updates on all of the meetings, and it'll notify you when they happen and when they change. And it's the most up-to-date, best way to get information. And we're trying to transition to this website being most of the calendar on the other website. But we're just running into some web stuff it's just not a good thing. But we're going to have a new website, and when that happens, they do have notification software that we can use more freely. So anyway, I will send this all to you all, and then Meg, if you can remember to talk to me, or if you remember anybody else's contact, I will make sure we get in touch and get you this as well.
That sounds great. Thank you.
I think in general, though, it's an interesting point, like regardless of whether we can't notice about meeting changes, I understand that, but that the community center was closed and facing issues. Can we notify town residents of that with our system, that we notify them about like when their streets updates, or water updates, or things like that, utilities communications?
I am not sure we can with the software we have, but I will find out. There's some considerations that we've just got to figure, but you're right, it needs to be fixed, and we're going to address it, and we'll work on it quickly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anything else? If not, I will move to adjourn the meeting at 9:39 p.m.
Extend a second as necessary. I second.
All
Third.
right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, all.
Um,
Have a good night.
yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Meg, for joining us as well.
Great to meet you guys over Teams, but hopefully we'll see each other in person soon.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Aye.